So how do we manage ARDS? As we saw, ARDS can be secondary to a type 1 and type 2 respiratory failure. So our first goal of management is to improve oxygenation and gas exchange. The second is to prevent further lung injury, because we saw the lung injury can happen because of the PCL. The lung injury can happen because of our ventilatory overstretch parameters, which causes overstretch of or over distension of the lung. So to prevent further lung injury, then definitely you are improving oxygenation, you are preventing further lung injury. You have to hasten the recovery of lung by giving it rest. So allow the lung to heal, because for every patient you cannot end up in a lung transplant. So allow the lung to heal, give it some time and give it some rest, and obviously prevent further complication. A patient on ARDS, make sure he does not acquire some secondary bacterial infections, or he does not end up into some bloodstream infections or deep venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, or aspiration of his gastric contents, malnutrition, bed sores, all the critical care complications. Prevent all those complications while you are giving some time for the lung to rest. So strategies to manage ARDS, we definitely know we have invasive mechanical ventilation. To some extent, we can even use non-invasive mechanical ventilation either through a ventilator or through HFNC. Then we have ECMO nowadays, which is very much coming in slowly into the picture to manage ARDS, and we definitely have other adjunctive therapies. So other adjunctive therapies would be inhaled nitric oxide, prostacyclin, surfactant replacements, glucocorticoids. But here today we will discuss only about the invasive mechanical ventilation, wherein lung protective ventilation as per the ARDSNet protocol, the landmark paper, we will go into details of it. Giving high PEEP and recruitment maneuvers, prone ventilation, which we know has got a great impact on treating ARDS, usage of muscle relaxants, the fact trial, fluid strategies, everything we will see. So first we will try to know about the invasive mechanical ventilation. So ventilatory strategies for ARDS, definitely when do we go for a ventilatory strategy will be to improve oxygenation when you think patient is hypoxemic, to facilitate carbon dioxide removal, to reduce the respiratory distress and PCL, and to prevent further lung injury. So once you put a patient on ventilator, because you notice that patient was in distress, patient was using his accessory muscles of respiration, his respiratory rate was very high, he was tachycardiac, he was sweating, there was diaphoresis, and he was not able to maintain his saturation, the air hunger was very high, you definitely go ahead and put the patient on invasive mechanical ventilation. But always remember that this is already a damaged lung. So for a damaged lung, our invasive mechanical ventilation can also cause some amount of damage. So which have been termed as 4 types. They are volutrauma, barotrauma, atelectotrauma and biotrauma. So what happens in a volutrauma? Volutrauma, as the name indicates, it is trauma induced due to the increased amount of tidal volume we give. So the increased amount of tidal volume which we administer to the patient causes a strain on the lung. So it just overstretches the lung or over distends the lung, to be very clear. So this strain is caused by increased tidal volume divided by its end expiratory lung volume. So the end expiratory lung volume and the tidal volume are very high, that it causes over distension of the lung, causing damage to the lung, which is termed as volutrauma. The second iatrogenic injury which we can give to lung secondary to invasive mechanical ventilation is barotrauma. So baro, again the name implies secondary to the pressure. So the amount of pressure which is generated because of our invasive mechanical ventilation causes a stress on the lung. So obviously if there is a strain on the lung, definitely the stress is high. If the strain secondary to the increased tidal volume causes an increased stress on the lung, so because of this increased strain, there is increased stress on lung causing barotrauma. That is, if your plateau pressures and peak pressures are already high in a ARDS lung, because it's a non-compliant lung, it's a stiff lung. So already the plateau pressures are high. Upon that, if we give higher tidal volumes, very great tidal volumes, definitely that increased tidal volumes as high as 12 ml per kg can cause a more increase in your plateau pressures, causing an overstretch on the lungs, resulting in barotrauma. Then the third is going to be your atelectotrauma. So this is your alveoli, which is during normal phase. So what happens during expiration? The alveoli is closed. Then during inspiration, the alveoli are again open. So during the cyclical positive pressure of inspiration and expiration, the alveoli closes and opens, causing a damage on the walls of the already damaged alveolar wall. So what happens is, because of this repeated opening and closure of the alveoli, especially during the positive pressure ventilation, there is atelectotrauma. So this, at the end of expiration, this atelectatic alveoli becomes overstretched at the end of inspiration. So this contributes to your atelectotrauma. And finally, there is a biotrauma. With so much of trauma happening, the volutrauma, the barotrauma, the atelectotrauma, all these things go into a mechanotransduction and leading to a cytokine storm at a cellular level. So every time the alveoli is distended and closed, every time there is an overstretch and overdistension of the lung, it causes damage to the alveolar capillary membrane all the more, resulting in the cytokine storm or the protein-rich fluid from the vessels to come inside your alveoli and make it more edematous. So it was all these complications or these iatrogenic injuries like volutrauma, barotrauma, atelectotrauma and biotrauma which led to the finding of a landmark paper, like that is the ARMA trial or the ARDSNet trial, with an intention to give you a lung protective ventilation to reduce all the iatrogenic trauma produced by a mechanical ventilation. So all these components of your mechanical ventilation gave birth to the most landmark paper of critical care, that is your ARMA trial or ARDSNet trial, that is which came out in NEJM on May 4, 2000. That is ventilation with lower tidal volumes as low as 4 to 6 ml per kg weight as compared to a traditional tidal volumes of around 12 ml per kg for acute lung injury and ARDS syndrome. So this is a very important paper. I want you to go home and read every aspect of this paper. Where was it done? On how many members it was done? What happened? Why was it stopped? What does the interim analysis show? And what was the protocol which was followed? Every step of the protocol. What was the PEEP which was kept? And what tidal volumes they started? What was the primary outcome, secondary outcome? You should be thorough with every aspect of this paper because this is definitely going to be asked during your examination, be it practical or theory. So the ARDSNet or the ARMA trial was sponsored by NHLBI of NIH because they wanted to have a very lung protective ventilation protocol in these ARDS patients. They compared patients receiving a tidal volume of around 12 ml per kg, that is the conventional traditional tidal volumes, to a newer lung protective tidal volumes of around 6 to 8 ml per kg predicted body weight. So here the ARDSNet people use the term called as predicted body weight. This was done over more than 80 centers all over the Europe with an intention to enroll around 1000 patients, but this was stopped abruptly at 862 patients because the interim analysis of this showed that the patients with a lower tidal volume had 22% mortality benefit compared to a traditional or a higher tidal volumes. So based on these interim analysis, the research or the study was abruptly stopped because we were getting anyways the positive result. So the inclusion criteria for them was definitely patient with ARDS with a PF ratio of less than 300 with having bilateral patchy opacities or infiltrates on the X-ray, and there is no clinical evidence of cardiac failure or pulmonary edema. So they began with the higher tidal volumes as range of 10 to 12 ml per kg body weight. With the target plateau pressure in these patients, they kept it less than or equal to 50 centimeters of water. So this was your control arm. Okay. And in your test arm, they measured the predicted body weight. This is more important because there were a lot of trials done earlier to this ARDSNet trial. There were almost 3 trials done which always showed that there was a mortality benefit with a higher tidal volumes. But this was the only trial which showed that there is a mortality benefit with a lower tidal volumes. The previous trials which were done which showed the mortality benefit with a higher tidal volumes incorporated very low numbers, that is around 200 to 250. But our ARDSNet trial wanted to incorporate 1000 patients, but at the level of 862 itself, they could see they could show a survival benefit. So the numbers was very high here, the first thing. The second thing what they did differently was they calculated the predicted body weight based on the age and sex, because they assumed that the amount of tidal volume required for every person is different. It is not like one size fits all. So the lungs grow as proportionately to your height. So they calculated the predicted body weight, and based on that predicted body weight, they went ahead with a volume control mode or an assist volume control mode, where they began with the ventilatory settings of 8 ml per kg of predicted body weight. So first they started with 8 ml per kg, and their entire target was to achieve a P plateau of less than 30 centimeters of water. So if they saw that with an 8 ml per kg, if the P plat was less than 30 centimeters of water, they reduced the tidal volume to 1 ml per kg at an interval of 2 hours until they brought it up to 6 ml per kg of predicted body weight. And in the meanwhile, when they saw that the PaCO2 was rising, so they increased the respiratory rate and kept a higher respiratory rate of around 35 beats per minute. So here again there was a change. So in the ARDSNet protocol, their respiratory rate target was up till 35, whereas in the previous trials which was done, they did not acquire such high respiratory rate. Their respiratory rate limit was up till 25 or 30 per minute. So here they targeted a respiratory rate of around 35, not more than 35 beats per minute, and they tried to adjust the tidal volume from 8 ml to 6 ml to achieve a target of P plat of around 30 centimeters of water. And if with the 6 ml per kg body weight, if the PaCO2 is under control or we have a permissive hypercapnia range of around 60 centimeters of water, so what did they do was, they tried to reduce the tidal volume much further up till 4 ml per kg. So they adjusted the tidal volume and respiratory rate to achieve your pH. So their target pH here, they accepted a pH of around up till 7.2. Their target plateau pressures was around 30 centimeters of water. So they kept on adjusting the tidal volume and respiratory rate to have these two targets in their control. Their oxygenation goals was PaO2 of around 55 to 80 millimeters of mercury or a saturation of around 88 to 95%. They started with a minimum PEEP of 5 centimeters of water, and they considered use of incremental FiO2 by PEEP by using their lower PEEP by higher PEEP table or a higher PEEP or lower FiO2 table. So based on these, they started increasing their PEEP to maintain the PaO2 or a saturation target, but they maintained the plateau pressure of less than 30 centimeters of water. And how did they measure their plateau pressure? This plateau pressure was measured by doing a inspiratory pause of around 0.3 to 0.5 seconds. So they did, after every 4 hours of change in ventilator, they would do an inspiratory pause of around 0.5 seconds and check for the plateau pressure, and this was done at least Q4th hourly after every change in PEEP or tidal volume. If the plateau pressure was more than 30 centimeters of water, they would decrease the tidal volume step by step by 1 ml per kg and bring it up to a minimum of 4 ml per kg. If the plateau pressure was less than 25 and the tidal volume was less than 6 ml, they would increase the tidal volume to 1 ml per kg until the P plat was more than 25 or the tidal volume was 6 ml per kg. If the P plat was less than 30 and the breath stacking or dyssynchrony occurs, they would increase the tidal volume to 1 ml per kg in increments up to 7 to 8 ml per kg of predicted body weight, provided the P plat remains less than 30 centimeters of water. So while doing this, they found that at the interim analysis, when they reached the patient of 862, they found that there was definitely a mortality benefit which was 22%, quite a significant mortality benefit in a patient with lower tidal volumes. So as you can see in this graph, this is the quartile of static compliance and this is the mortality of the patient. So in a lower tidal volume patient with the whatever be the compliance, if you give a lower tidal volume strategy, there was definitely a mortality benefit compared to a higher tidal volume strategy where the mortalities was very high. So they were very successful in showing a mortality benefit, as well as they were able to show that it was very easy to wean the patient on a lower tidal volume, that is breathing without assistance by day 28 was higher in a patient receiving lower tidal volumes, and this achieved the statistical significance of P less than 0.001. So this was the conclusion made by the ARDSNet trial, that a patient receiving lower tidal volumes with the target achievement of P-plat of less than 30 centimeters of water, and if you try to give increase the respiratory rate, accept a permissible hypercapnia and accept a pH of 7.2 and only alter your ventilatory tidal volume and respiratory rate to manage your minute ventilation, there would definitely be a mortality benefit in a patient with lower tidal volume groups. So this is one more important paper which I would want you to study, that is mechanical ventilation, lessons learned from ARDSNet trial. So this paper very beautifully describes why the ARDSNet trial was successful compared to the other previous 3 trials, what were the significant things which were done very specifically in an ARDSNet trial compared to all the other previous trials, and why do we think the ARDSNet trial was very successful, and why is it called as a landmark paper in critical care. So 100% there is going to be a question from ARDS and it can be of any form. So I want you to read the ARMA trial as well as this paper, specific paper. I have given you the details of it. Mechanical ventilation, lessons learned from ARDSNet trial. So as we know, the ARDSNet trial used a volume control mode of ventilation. So you can even argue saying that I would like to use a pressure control mode of ventilation because I am very comfortable with it. No offense, there is no studies or no guidelines which says that VCV is much higher than a PECV mode. If you go with an evidence-based guidelines, we have an ARMA trial which has used a volume control mode of ventilation. So we would say that definitely that is better because there is a better controlling of respiratory mechanics. You know how much minute ventilation you have been achieving. You know what is your respiratory rate, how much tidal volumes. You have a better graphs and presentation with you, and you have an evidence associated with it. But if you think, no, I wanted to use a pressure control mode of ventilation, you can very well go ahead with a pressure control mode of ventilation which gives a homogeneous distribution of oxygenation. That is because you know the amount of pressure support which you give or the P inspiratory you give is nothing but your target plateau pressure, and it gets equally distributed in all the parts of the lung. So definitely the homogeneous distribution of oxygenation is there in a pressure control ventilation, and you need not do an end expiratory pause of around 0.5 seconds every 4th hourly to calculate your plateau pressure, because the P inspiratory pressure whatever you give is nothing but your plateau pressure, is a surrogate marker of your plateau pressures. So 100% in that way the pressure control mode will be advantageous. So if you think you are comfortable with the pressure control mode of ventilation, you can very well go with that mode. So they argued that other than the lower tidal volumes and the monitoring of plateau pressures, there should be some factor which should be guiding the success of the ARDSNet trial. So they argued that it is the compliance of the lung which matters, and for whenever we saw that in an ARDS patient, always the compliance was very low because it is a stiff lung. Even with the low tidal volumes, whenever we calculate the compliance, that is delta V by delta P, we found that the compliance was low because of the stiff lung. But then we knew that there is a concept called the concept of baby lung, which means a smaller part of the lung. The baby lung is a normal lung, normal physiological lung. It's not a stiff lung which is still functional, which is normally aerating, contributing to a normal ventilation perfusion exchange compared to the rest part of the lung. So it is a smaller piece of lung, the small part of the lung which is not damaged, which is functioning well, and which is contributing to your oxygenation and ventilation here. So the Amato et al. And colleagues argued that it is the compliance of the baby lung which matters, and the compliance of this baby lung is indirectly giving us the success of our ARDSNet trial. So they argued that normalizing the tidal volume to the compliance and using its ratio, that is delta V by delta P, to indicate the functional size of the good lung is a better predictor of outcome in ARDS. So they indirectly said that let us measure delta pressures, because for a big huge lung which is stiff, which is ARDS, even if you give a lower tidal volume, the compliance remains to be low. So rather let us target that baby lung and then check the compliance of that baby lung and try to save that lung and give the other parts of the lung a rest. So they came with a concept of delta P, or the driving pressures, which was nothing but the plateau pressures which we measured by giving an end expiratory occlusion of 0.5 seconds minus the PEEP we are giving. So that is the driving pressure. So they said targeting the driving pressures of around 14 to 16 centimeters of water gives a much more better predictor of outcome than targeting your plateau pressures of 30 centimeters of water. So they just extrapolated the ARDSNet trial and said that let us go to a driving pressure concept, which is nothing but a tidal volume divided by the compliance of the lung. Because ultimately the tidal volume, the lower tidal volume which you are giving goes only to the baby lung, and that is what is contributing to the compliance of the lung. So they targeted the baby lung concept and came out with a new concept of driving pressures and its survival in the acute respiratory distress syndrome. And they showed that definitely if you target a driving pressure of 14 to 16 centimeters of water, there is going to be a mortality benefit and it is a better predictor of outcome in ARDS. So summarizing your lung protective ventilation, we begin, and what are our targets? We begin with a tidal volume of 6 to 8 ml per kg of predicted body weight. Always remember predicted body weight. Try to remember the formula, how the predicted body weight is calculated. For males it is different and for females it is different. It is like 50 plus 0.5 and for females it will be 45.5 plus 0.5 divided into the height in centimeters minus 152, height in centimeters minus 152. So target, start with your tidal volume of 6 to 8 ml per kg of predicted body weight and keep your plateau pressures of less than 30 centimeters of water. If you extrapolate further, and you can even keep a target pressures of 14 to 16 centimeters of water. To measure plateau pressures, do an end expiratory occlusion test, minimum for 0.3 to 0.5 milliseconds. Target a respiratory rate of 30 to 35 per minute with a respiratory goal of saturation of 88 to 94% or a PaO2 of 55 to 60 millimeters of mercury, and accept a permissible hypercapnia with a PaCO2 of 60 to 65 millimeters of mercury, targeting your pH to 7.2. Here, if you think you are not able to get this in spite of doing everything like bring the respiratory rate to 35, giving a tidal volume of around 8 ml per kg and reducing FiO2 to max of 40 to 60 to keep a saturation of 88, even if you are still, if your pH remains 7.2, then the ARDSNet trial had advocated that this is one indication to administer soda bicarbonate to keep your pH at a level of around 7.2. So, in spite of all your ventilatory parameters, if you still think that your carbon dioxide, you are not able to flush away your carbon dioxide in spite of keeping the respiratory rate of 35, tidal volume of 8, FiO2 minimum with a saturation of acceptable of 88, still if your pH is less than 7.2, this is a soft indication to administer soda bicarbonate so that to keep the pH in the physiological limit so that it is compatible with life. So, this is one indication where soda bicarbonate can still be used in critical care as per your ARDSNet trial. So, summarizing, ARDS, both the type 1, type 2 respiratory failure, Berlin definition, modern definition, the changes in the definitions, categorizing on mild, moderate, severe, both for intubated patients, non-intubated patients, pathophysiology, obviously you will be knowing some amount of the pathophysiology, the concept of baby lung, then the various modalities of treatment of ARDS, most important mechanical ventilation, the iatrogenic trauma, volu, baro, bio and atelective trauma caused by the mechanical ventilation, the landmark paper, ARDSNet trial, what were the parameters used, what were their targets and what did they monitor, extrapolation of your ARDSNet trial, your usage of driving pressures by Amato et al. And monitoring your driving pressures to 14 to 16 centimeters of water as much more better predictor of ARDS, and the soft indication of administering soda bicarbonate if you are not able to achieve your laboratory parameters. Thank you.